Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today in this academic lecture. This is actually a first for our lab to hold an academic lecture. I will be introducing our speaker for today. But before that, I'll give you an idea first, no, because I mentioned that academic lectures, if you're a previous participant of our technical workshop, this is kind of different. No, our main goal in holding this academic lecture is because we noticed last term when we have our technical workshop, there are parts or prerequisite that you need to understand first before you actually understand how to program or code the things that we teach in technical workshops. So we imagine that we need to have a session before the technical workshop to discuss, to make it like a lecture about the theories and the prerequisite knowledge that you have to understand before you have or you do the programming part in the workshop. So that means this is actually a two-part um, presentation from Kate. So today would be the lecture, but next Saturday would be the actual technical workshop, which wherein you are going to program, you're going to code whatever you are going to learn today. Okay? So that is the difference between the academic workshop, academic lecture and technical workshop. We want you to have first a solid understanding of the things that we are going to do for the programming part. Now, to introduce the speaker, first before we talk about the abstract of what we are going to learn for today, we are going to understand fine-grained visual classification. And this involves classifying subjects with large similarities, but with small, subtle differences in appearance. It differs from most image classification tasks because it requires expertise to distinguish between two subjects that look very similar according to the average person with little to no experience in the domain. But despite advances in deep learning, creating large data sets with accurate annotations is a challenging task. So this lecture entitled Decoupling for Robust Fine-Grained Visual Classification with Noisy Labels will actually help us address what is fine-grained visual classification and why do we encounter noisy labels. So Kate would be explaining to you how are we going to solve this problem using decoupling, which is a paper that will be covered for today. So our speaker for today, Kate Justine Ermitaño, is a fourth-year student at De La Salle University, pursuing a degree at Bachelor's of Science in Computer Science and Master of Science in Computer Science as well. As a member of our lab and the Science Educational Institute Department of Science and Technology scholar, their research centers around fine-grained classification. Furthermore, they are also interested in areas such as object detection and data science. Kate served their sophomore and junior years partaking in the role of a tutor at the Peer Tutor Society or PTS of De La Salle University. They specialized in discrete structures, algorithms and complexity, and mathematics. They also worked as a technical writer at the Technology, Education, Entertainment, Empathy Design House for their internship as a junior. So without further ado, I'll give the floor to Kate. Kate, you may share your presentation.
Hi, hello everyone. Can you hear me? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so Good morning, everyone. I am Kate Ermitaño. Today, I will be talking about decoupling strategies for robust fine-grained visual classification with noisy labels. So, what we're going to talk about for today revolves around the concept of fine-grained visual classification, or FGVC, how it works, the applications, the challenges, and then I'll talk about the solution, which is decoupling. So, what is FGVC? So how it works is fine-grained visual classification is a task aiming to classify objects or subclasses belonging to the same superclass. So this would mean having to distinguish between subclasses that look very similar with very little differences. So what makes it different from the standard object classification? Usually in object classification, for example, we identify cats from dogs or species of animals, like for example, a lion and a zebra. But here in FGVC, if we scope it down to like dogs, for example, we're going to classify the dog breeds. So minsan kasi may dog breeds na sobrang similar, which I will talk about later. So that's where FGVC comes in. So here, we use localized discriminative structures to tell each class apart. So for example, we use the beak of the bird, the snout of the dog, or the badges on cars to tell them each other. So here I have four images of aircraft. So as a regular audience, we cannot tell the differences between these four. So I would like to ask you, what are the differences between these four? Can you spot the differences? I give you like 10 seconds lang. Okay. Mostly walang response. So the differences here are the upper deck windows. So here are the models. I have a 747-100, -200, -300, and then -400. So in the 100 series, we have three upper deck windows. In the 200, there's the door near the cockpit windows. For the -300, there's a full upper deck, and then the -400, there's a wingtip. So na-spot ko na yung differences. So in our eyes, mukha silang same lang, di ba? So it's very hard to distinguish between these four subclasses since talaga nga sobrang subtle lang ng differences. So what are the applications of fine-grained classification? So here, one example is yung flower species. So this is a daisy flower actually, but they have different classes pa, like subclasses of daisies. So here they look very similar, yellow sila, and then the other side is white and yellow. So mukha silang pareho, pero for the professionals, they're actually different. Another is the one I cited before is yung dog breeds. So for example, is yung Boston Terrier and yung French Bulldog. They look the same actually since mukha silang, yung face structure nila is very similar, yung color ng fur nila, etc. Another one is yung automotive. So for example, now kasi the cars look exactly the same besides the basic colors. So for example, you can't tell between a RAV4 and a CRV kasi mukha talaga silang pare-pareho lang in our eyes. Another is yung magnetic resonance imaging. So for example, you want to tell which parts of the brain are healthy and which ones have a disease. So for us, mukha lang silang the same. Another is in facial recognitions. Minsan kasi sometimes there are people that look very similar but very little differences. Like for example, twins or two people that look the same but the other one has a mole on their face. Last one is yung forgery detection. So here there are two images here. The first one on the top left is the original image, and then the one in the middle is yung fake. So how can they tell which one is the fake? So here they're going to test each image. They're going to see which one is similar and then which one is different. So here kasi they only remove the wallpaper and then put just a gradient. So that's the fake. So what are the challenges of FGBC? So the challenge number one here is yung high interclass variability, or in other words, same superclass, which is the 737 family, and various differences. So this is a 737, but here in each image, mga subclass yan. So the first image here is yung 737-100, a dash 200, dash 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800. So the only difference is here na napapansin is yung length, or how many windows in nasa fuselage or body. And then the other ones here, yung mga latest models, they have the wing tips, which is yung parang shark fin sa wings. But to us, mukha lang silang same lang. Another is yung low interclass variability, aka different class similar peons. So here, I have four classes here of aircraft. Mukha silang the same, but they're actually different. So here, I have a Boeing 787. Here, I have an Airbus A350, a Boeing 777, and then an Airbus A330. So for me kasi, since medyo naging hobby ko na kasi yung aviation, I got used to identifying the aircraft. Pero in the perspective of, for example, you guys, medyo mahirap siya i-identify pa. The third one here is yung localized discriminative features. So in this task, we have to identify what makes them different from each other. So here, I have the wing tips and then yung number of windows sa upper deck. So another challenges is yung the neural networks rely on supervised learning on large scale, fully labeled data. But what happens if the data isn't fully labeled? So while creating data set is very easy due to the access of the internet, the labeling of the data in high accuracy is more expensive. So we use crowdsourcing and mining to achieve that goal. However, they are more prone to noisy and or corrupted data. So imagine you collected large amounts of data on the internet. Now the challenge there is how do you label the data one by one? Not only label, but also label them correctly. So that's going to be very expensive and time consuming. So why is noisy data problematic? The number one reason there is that higher chances of overfitting and higher variance, since if the model is learning on the wrong patterns, they start to overfit, which is not something that we want the models to learn. So they also have the incorrect adjustment of weights, slower rate of convergence, and then inaccurate loss. So all in all, it reduces the robustness in generalizing on nuance in data. So kahit na medyo mataas ang accuracy ng model mo, babagsak siya kapag mag-generalize on new data. Since nag-overfit siya, or aka nag-memorize na yung buong data set, which is kasama na dun yung noise. So here's a sample scenario. I want to create another subclass, which is the Boeing 747-8. So here, I'm going to look up images from DuckDuckGo. Hindi ako nag-Google. So what's the problem with taking data from the internet? Well, number one, the problem here is, wait, sorry. Sorry, okay. So I look up the Boeing 747-8. I'll use data mining to create my new subclass, which is I'll put it in the data set. So the problem here is there are images that are cropped, so you can fully identify what model that is, because it's possible that maybe it won't be a dash 8, maybe it's a dash 300, a dash 400, and so on. Another thing is the unrelated images. You cannot identify the model of the aircraft when you're given images like this. So the cockpit, how are you going to know if this is a dash 100 or 200 or so on, judging by the images alone? So that's the noise that we cannot prevent when gathering data from the internet. Another sample scenario is, okay, there are companies that have the same company name. So here I have three deltas. So here delta for the airline, I have another delta for electronics, and then a delta for the faucets. So what's going to be the problem with same names? Well, if we start training the data and then, for example, the label is only delta, and how we're going to identify if the delta is airline or electronics or faucet. Another one is the Jaguars. So here I have a Jaguar for the cars and then a Jaguar for a energy company. So that's where the noisy data comes in too, since you can't tell which one is the automotive and then which one is the energy, since they have the same names. Lastly is the two Apple logos. So here I have the Apple Corps, which is the music label for the Beatles. And then lastly, the more popular logo, which is Apple for electronics. So how do we overcome these challenges? The solution here is we use the coupling. So what is the coupling? So what makes it different from the standard training? So in the standard training, the current update criterion is we update only when the classifier's prediction is incorrect from its label. So if mali yung prediction ng data, dun siya mag-update. So by the end of the optimization, these updates are linked to noisy data. So dyan dating yung mag-overfit. So here, what what is the proposed criterion? What if we change the update system to we only train the two models and then only perform updates when their predictions do not match? So when they do not match, there comes the area of disagreement. So as the models improve, the area of disagreement gets smaller and then convergence as quickly as the current update criterion. So I'm going to explain all of this later. So first, I'm going to show you the simplified pseudocode since medyo complex pa yun sa paper na pinagbasehan ko. So here I have the algorithm 1, which is the update by disagreement. So here I have the update rule, which can either be backpropagation or gradient descent, etc. So here I have model 1, which for me, I chose ResNet for my experiment. Another model, which is EfficientNet or another model. So the first step is we go through all the images in the data set. We get one image and then feed it to model 1 and model 2. Get get the predictions from model 1 and model 2. And then we check their predictions with the if statement. If they're not the same, so hindi, hindi sila pareho ng prediction. So are they both incorrect? If they're both incorrect, there'll be no updates. So sample here is they're going to identify this aircraft. So model 1 here says dash 200, and then sorry, model 2 yung green. Model 2 says dash 8. So are they both correct, or is one of them correct, or are they both wrong? So actually they are both incorrect. So the correct answer is dash 300. So here they won't update, which I will explain later kung bakit. So what if one model is correct? So if one of them is correct, we both update model 1 and model 2. So here I have another example, which is they identify this aircraft. Model 1 says 777-200, and then model 2 again says A330-200. So which one of them is correct? So the correct one is model 1, which is the orange box. So when this happens, both models have to update. But what happens if the predictions are the same? So they will continue without the update. So here I have a side-by-side comparison between the coupling and then the standard image classifier. So the difference here is medyo same yung for loop, but the difference is we have to compare their predictions if they are the same or not the same, if they are correct or one model is incorrect. While the standard classifier is we only get the predictions from model 1 and model 2 and then update them regardless of their predictions. Water break lang muna. Hold on. Okay. So here comes the update rule. So why there are no updates when both models are correct? Because here we have a different priority. The algorithm focuses more on uncertainty or ambiguity. That is, if we make too many unnecessary updates, it starts to overfit. And then the next bullet says it speeds up convergence. It speeds up because if they start focusing on the hard data and then they'll make adjustments, which with those adjustments, they'll start converging really quick. The only drawback there is that they may not be able to pick up patterns from simpler samples. Like for example, I added another subclass now, which is easier to understand. They'll start ignoring it since they don't make an impact on the accuracy. So they won't update on that part. So here they only focus on the data with uncertainty, which is yung magkakaroon ng debate. Doon na lang sila magpo-focus. So another one is why no updates when both models are incorrect? Because if they are both incorrect, there will be no disagreements. So the sample may be actually misleading or challenging to identify. Like for example, I get data from the internet and then I mislabel it or label it incorrectly. So the challenge there is that the models won't be able to identify that image. So they may start to pick up the wrong information or patterns. And then the drawback there is that the mistake samples may not be corrected or classified correctly. So ang mangyari kasi dyan, kapag nagkamali sila, hindi nila correct yun since there are no updates. So that's one of the drawbacks of the coupling. So let's go to evaluation. Right after the coupling or training, the algorithm chooses the model with the highest accuracy for evaluation. So evaluation will proceed as normal. By normal as in there are no changes. Like for example, in the standard image classifier, di ba, may training and evaluation sila. We just stick to the normal evaluation. We're just going to use the model with the higher accuracy. So why it works? It ignores noisy samples without the need to correct labels. So hindi na kailangan ng external tools to modify the dataset or change the labels to correct it. It also minimizes the tendency of overfitting on noise. It prioritizes hard samples where ambiguity occurs, and then it works well on datasets where manual annotations have errors. So, mas common siya kapag sa web scrape na data na medyo may onting noise pa. Pero, what are the limitations of decoupling? So, it does not correct itself from mistakes like I mentioned from earlier. They're not very good for extremely noisy data sets as they start to learn the wrong patterns, which in turn, they start to overfit on the wrong patterns. Lastly, slower convergence on clean data just due to less updates. Like I said, kapag if the data is clean, they do not make that much agreement since both models will identify it correctly. So if they are both correct, there will be no updates. So what's going to be our experiment for next week? So the experiment is we're going to identify the subclass of the superclass Boeing 747 from this web aircraft dataset. Medyo malaki yung dataset na yan, which is I think 53,000 images. So I only chose one superclass para para mabilis lang. So the challenges here is noisy data due to wave scraping and then the subtle differences. So here I have 5 subclasses, which is the dash 100, 200, 300, 400, and then 8. So here, the noise comes into play due to misclassified subclasses and other images. So like I said, when we use the internet, may mga images na hindi related sa gusto natin. So here, when I save the images, I have another image of a cockpit, which is I think kita sa doon sa top right. Ayun, hindi ko lang nabilugan. So here in this experiment, I use data augmentation to strengthen the training. Also use Torque Vision models, which is ResNet 18 and then EfficientNet small with the default weights. I used in Adam Optimizer and then the cos entropy loss. So number one, the models are first trained on images in sequence and then evaluated on random images. So I have my results here. We can see na by epochs 1, 2, 3, 4 hanggang 5, medyo nag-converge siya ng mabilis. So what we're focusing here is that decoupling, which is yung, I think yung dark pink and then green na lines. So by epoch 4 and 5, medyo mas mataas yung accuracy na compared to like the ones without decoupling, which is yung blue and yung yellow line. I think because that's the point of the decoupling, they have to converge faster regardless of their final results by epoch number 9. So here, evidence siya na medyo mabilis yung pagka-converge niya, pati yung accuracy. Medyo, I think, after epoch 5, nag-overfit na siya. Kaya medyo bumaba yung accuracy. But I'll explain everything during the workshop next week. So in conclusion, the decoupling is helpful in cases where the datasets have minimal to moderate noise, hindi yung extremely noisy na dataset. So it learns on samples where the disagreements occur, which is speeds up convergence. And then lastly, it may not work well on extremely noisy or clean dataset. So while decoupling as a use, it has a suitable use case for minimal to moderate noise. So it's not very useful for every use case. So to prepare for the workshop next week, I have here the link to the dataset. I have here the link, and then if you open the link, you're gonna have to download the small dataset, and then you, I think, pwede Visual Studio Code instead of Jupyter Notebook. I don't know. But I provided the README text files and then the requirements so you can prepare for the workshop next week. So if you have questions, you can email me about installing the requirements. Since to me, kahit sa README, medyo detail na yung README. Baka kasi may problem sa system nyo, like hindi ma-install yung requirement or ayaw ma-install. So you can ask me via email. So, sorry. So I think that's all na for now. Sir
Okay.
Aaron.
Hello. Thank you, Kate, for the presentation. The floor is now open for questions that you might have about the presentation. So you can probably raise your hands if you have like questions about this, especially since we are going to do some sort of programming for the workshop next week. So it's better to like discuss the theories now para next time we meet for this, the theories are already clear. Okay, there's a question here. I'll read it for Ferds. Hello, I'm interested on the labeling process for this specific classification task. Is labeling process the same done for common classification tasks? And if so, what software for labeling is used, RoboFlow or CVAT? And is it saved on a Coco JSON format?
Hello, I have little experience in labeling data, but I had very little experience on RoboFlow since free siya to use. Tapos intuitive siya gamitin. So I think I can suggest to you RoboFlow. I think kasi sa Roblox you have to make an account first and then you can save your labels. But I'm not
Okay.
sure ano yung format ng labeling, if JSON format ba siya.
Okay. I'll probably answer this. Kate, could you please go back to the part of web scraping? Just to contextualize the... Okay. Let me just answer the question of birds first, then we go to the question of Matthew. Okay. Just to give context to everyone and to emphasize what has been discussed, the problem of noisy labels happens when you do web scraping. Anong ibig sabihin nun? You have like an automatic script that downloads images online that can be used for, let's say, classification, object detection, and whatnot. So automatic siya. We had this experience in one of the other groups that I'm handling in the research lab. Pero hindi automatic kasi yung ginawa nila no? Na pag-web scrape. But in papers that we read, because there was a time in like 2 years or 1 year ago in computer vision that our goal is to make the data larger. Maraming data, no? But I think it was during the COVID pandemic that we cannot even collect data at some point because we're restricted to go outside. So what the research during that time is to collect images or data from the internet. And their solution is to create um, application or web scraping algorithms that can collect images by just putting like the web query that you need to type in Google and whatnot. Tapos siya na yung magda-download ng dataset for you. The problem there was explained in this slide set. No? Sometimes the images, imagine the web scraping tool will automatically download, let's say, thousands or million, or at least a million of images for you. It would be very difficult for you to go over each image and check whether it really falls under a specific class. Not unless you have the budget to check that or also the time to check that. So kaya mo nga siya ginawang web scraper, kaya mo nga siya ginawang automated para at least matipid, mabilis, di ba? But if you're doing it automatically, the tendency is for you to have noisy data. And when we say noisy data, there are unwanted images that you do not want to be included in your data set. Similar to what was highlighted here, this one, and this one. Okay? So I think we're searching for a specific version of 747 here. Pero pag yung cockpit nasama siya dun sa dataset, sabi kanina ni Kate, hindi natin makaklassify or this is not useful for us to classify because there are no identifiable features differentiating 747 na airplane from other airplanes, no? So it's all about the outer appearance of the plane that differentiates it. Pag ito nasama sa dataset mo, magiging panggulo siya. And the effect of that is mahihirapan yung model mo to train. Now, to answer the question of Fertz, thank you for this. The labeling process, since nag-web scraping ka, no, imagine it as if you are searching online using Google and you have this, you type your search query, let's say it's 747, that's the version of the plane or the model of the plane. Kung anong ibigay sa'yo ni Google, that will be automatically downloaded. All of it. So even this, and this, mapapasama. So how do we label that? Actually, there's no, it you will not do any additional labeling in that process. Why? Kasi kung ano yung tinype mo dun sa search bar, or ano yung binigay mo dun sa web scraper mo, that would be the class already. No? So each image right now that you downloaded for a specific search query can already be the label for that specific image, right? For the images that you download. So that's the explanation for this type of problem, because right now it's still being used. We can still collect images online. It will definitely give you a lot of images that can help build your data set and also train your model. But if you're going to, like, let's say you have this project, tapos you are going to collect the data on your own. We've done this before. We have this project on, we have this project on sign language, Filipino sign language classification or detection. I remember the students used RoboFlow for that. Some other groups, it really depends on your preference kung anong gagamitin mo. But I think RoboFlow is good for multiple teams that wants to label the same thing, no? But the downside there is if the image, I think the images are being shared publicly for the if you're going to use a RoboFlow, because it's an online platform. Thank you for that question. Let me go to Matthew. So the question is, this is for Kate. Is decoupling also applicable for actual medical images in specific image format? Such
Here
as
I'm
yung,
not, I'm sorry. Here I'm not too sure since I haven't used Nifty or Decop, if I pronounce that correctly, since the datasets I specialize in are mostly JPEG images. So here I'm not too sure about medical imaging.
okay. But can you talk about, let's say, are there applications of, not regarding the format, but can you talk about like kailan tayo magkakaroon ng fine-grained classification problem for medical applications? You've shown one example earlier.
Let me go back to the slides because the one I showed is mostly about the brain, since if we're gonna look at the images about the brain, it's harder to classify which one here is the healthy brain and then which one here has the disease. So for us commoners na hindi professionals in the medical field, they look very the same. But for them, they're different. So how are we going to classify which is which one here is the healthy brain and then which one here has maybe brain cancer or other conditions? But here regarding the formatting question, I'm not too sure
Okay.
since JPEG lang yung
Yeah.
images ko.
Okay. But I think it's a two-part question. I think you answered the first one correctly. Na medical images like this one would be the problem with fine-grained classification problem, if I may overemphasize. The problem is different classes pero mukhang magkakamukha siya in for laypersons like us na hindi naman nasa medical field. So Kate gave here some examples not on medical imaging only, but also on images like for cars. Minsan for people who are not yung mga addicted to cars, hindi naman sila maalam to differentiate between different models. I think planes, yung main example dito. That's why in the poster we had that placed yung mga different versions of planes. That's the problem with fine-grained classification. It's too difficult to differentiate between different classes, not only unless you have a trained eye or you're an expert in the field. Now, if I may answer the question regarding the image format, I guess, and I've done something on this before, though not on research. I have this, I remember it's an X-ray in a DICOM format. What I did to make it compatible, because I also work, or there's a group that I handled before that worked on X-ray images, but it's already in JPEG. But I would imagine that before it was distributed in JPEG, because it's a publicly available dataset, what they did is they converted the DICOM format into JPEG. So there should be some sort of conversion. One is because I think Diacom is too large to store, no? Too large to store for us. So most of the time we convert it to something that is more digestible or more viable for the machine to store. Okay? I've attended some conference just last year. There is this group of there's this laboratory in Russia. Um, they have these data sets and their images are medical in nature, and their images are usually 1 GB, I think, per image. So before you process that in a machine learning algorithm or in a convolutional neural network, they had to first transform it into our usual JPEG or PNG, no? Because it's too big for them to operate on that. Not unless you have very big resources for training these models. Were we able to answer that, Matthew? Okay, thank you. Now let me go to a question um, of Kezia. Hello, I'm just curious. How well do you think this strategy would work on age classification from facial images where features of the face are more complicated than design features of objects? Kate, could you please answer that?
That actually there's already an existing study, but they're focused on identifying the genders of the person. So they took images from the internet and then their task is to identify whether it's a male or a female. So the noise there, because sometimes there are names that are very ambiguous. Like for example, the name Alex. Can you tell if Alex is a male or a female since that's the name of the person on the image? So that's the challenge where FGVC comes from. They're going to look at the face of the subject and then tell whether it's a male or a female given the features. So here I think if we're focused on the age classification, I bet it would work as well.
Okay, I do agree. Um, Age classification, it would really depend on the data set, I would presume. Like, do you want the actual age or do you want the image of a person classified under an age bracket? Kasi I think in terms of if we want to classify it under age bracket, that would be simpler. Or at least we are going to achieve a higher accuracy for that one. I remember back then there was a time in Facebook wherein there are applications that our parents are usually using for they are going to upload their image, and that algorithm or that application in Facebook will try to detect or to guess the age of our parents. Tapos natutuwa sila pag mas bata, di ba, yung prediction. Back then, I don't think it's good. During that time, hindi pa ganun kagaling yung pag-predict ng age. But I think right now, it's a more developed field. No? It's a more developed field as compared to what it was before. So at least during that time when it was booming in Facebook, there's already an effort to do that kind of research together with the identification whether you're male or female na, back then. So siguro ganito, usually I always tell my students if it's something that humans can identify, that's the first thing that you have to test and to check. If it's something that humans can identify, then probably we can teach a machine to learn it as well. So, kung gaano ka-accurate yung tayong mga tao to be able to identify the age of a person according to their face, then I guess that should be our expectation as well for machines. No? Kung ang humans are like 80% good in trying to predict the age, then probably we expect our algorithms to predict it that accurate as well. Did we answer the question?
I think I also like to add, the only challenge I think is yung since there are people na ano, they look younger than they look. Like for
Yeah.
example, I am 24 tapos marami nagsabi sa akin mukha daw akong 16-year-old. So I think that's going to be the challenge.
Yeah.
Also kasi
I
in East
agree.
Asia, the age there, I think average age there, they look younger compared to like here in the West na I think the 18-year-olds, they look older than 18, like nagmukha silang 30s or 20s. So I think that's going to be the challenge na not all 18-year-olds look the same.
I agree. I agree. So if you want it to be an algorithm that can encompass multiple races, kasi may difference pa yan, no? We know that I think we can all agree that based on visual features, for some reason, hindi ko alam kung bakit, but some Asians are really young looking for their age. Um, so we have to take that into account. Um, and that should be taken into account according to the data set that you're going to use. So you need to really represent how a person looks like across different varieties in terms of the race of a person. Parang lang at least all are represented in your data set. Okay, thank you. Those are very interesting questions. Any other questions before we end?
I think I have to add another one about my problem with wave scraping. So my data set is web aircraft. So there's an model there na ang sabi tornado ang class niya. Ang nangyari kasi kapag nag-wave scraping, ang kinuha na tornado, instead yung aircraft is kinuha yung weather. So I think hindi ko na makita yung dataset ko, na-delete ko na yung class na yun.
Yeah,
Pero it happens. Iba yung nakukuha sa internet.
yes. The data set that you are going to work on, Kate, next Saturday would be the actual data set, no, collected from the internet. Tama?
Mhm.
Right.
So
So
it's
it's
where
scraped from the internet. I also had this experience. I asked Kate to include that in the presentation. Can you go to the logo data set? Yeah, this one. I had this data set. I worked on fine grain classification as well. And we wanted to like classify different logos. In that specific study, we used like 5 data sets, but one of the data sets, merong about food, merong about insects, one is about logo. So yung logo yung pinaka naalala ko. Kasi because it was collected from the internet automatically, when you type like a specific word, name of uh, a brand like Jaguar, minsan meron dun images na actual Jaguar, not a logo but an actual Jaguar. Okay? So if you want your data not to be noisy, then I would imagine you need to have an additional layer before doing or releasing the data set, though it would be very time consuming and also costly, no? Especially if you have a large data set, because you need to have some sort of layer after data collection. You have to check whether it was able to collect the data properly. Kung tama ba yung na-collect niyang data. That can be an additional layer for you if you're collecting data like this in terms of approach. Siguro I would ask the last question for Kate. I would like for our participants to understand, could you please highlight again the difference between the usual training process and how decoupling does it? So if you could go to the side-by-side comparison. Ayan.
I'll start answering it no. Here kasi what happens is for the one with the coping, they start checking the predictions with the if statement. So if else or else but here in the image classifier, they just retrieve the image, they get the predictions from model 1 and model 2, and then they update regardless if the predictions are correct or incorrect. So here in the standard image classifier, lagi siya nag-update yung model 1 pati model 2. So magiging drawback niya is medyo slower ang convergence niya or yung learning niya since madami siyang kinokorek. Tapos mas prone pa siya sa overfitting lalo na kapag hindi maganda yung parameters like for example maraming noise. So sa noise niyon mag-update ng update siya dun sa noise para lang ma-capture yung trends which is by that trends kasama dun yung noisy labels. So they'll start learning the wrong labels tapos mas matagal ang learning niya. But here sa decoupling, we only check the predictions and then we check if they are the same or not the same, if they are correct or incorrect, and then they only make the updates if one of them is correct. So dyan sila magde-debate na, for example, si Model 1 tama siya, si Model 2 incorrect. So both of them will have to update para medyo mas mabilis yung convergence nila. So when it comes to testing naman or evaluation, almost the same lang. Sa training lang sila nagkaiba.
Okay. Thank you, Kate. If you could like provide the link to the decoupling paper para probably they can read it on their own time as well if they're interested before we end today's session.
Yeah. I added the links na rin sa chat. Sa chat po yung the link to
Okay.
the Google Drive. So they can
Thank you.
start downloading the notebook.
Yeah. Okay. If you're interested to read like other papers, we had a paper working on fine grain classification as well. Let me give you like a link to the project website for that. You can read it on your own time for this one. We also use the aircraft dataset for this, but this is an entirely different work. Ayan. If you have questions for Kate, you can send it via the email sent in the chat. So, I guess wala naman ng questions. The recording of this session, by the way, this session is recorded. We're going to post this in our YouTube channel. All of our previous sessions are also posted there. We only have like 2 sessions before. So it's a fairly new practice. But if you want to look at the recordings, it's all there in our YouTube channel. This will be posted there as well, and we'll send you a copy para you can view it on your own time. We are also going to send you an email about the workshop that we're going to hold next Saturday, same time for this one. So this is just the first lecture for this term. Based on my record, we have 4 different lectures that we're going to have this term. So if you're interested um, to be a part of those lectures, just always check the I send announcement via email, and also I send you can view it in our Facebook page. Aside from that, we have 2 workshops. So when we say workshop, that's the programming part. Next Saturday would be the programming part for decoupling. Para we understand how do we do it, how do we perform, or how do we write code for decoupling. Okay? After this one, we'll have an object detection naman na lecture and also a workshop on object detection. So we're going to use, I think, YOLO for that one again. So I guess if there are no more questions, I thank everyone for spending time with us today and for listening to the lecture of Kate. Thank you, everyone, and have a great weekend ahead of you.